There are two sculptures in Eyemouth that tell a story, a very poignant story, one that has been largely forgotten outside of Berwickshire. One is to Willie Spears, a true-life local hero, and the second, a moving memorial to those that were left behind after a horrific natural disaster, the like of which had never been seen within living memory. The two stories are connected, and there's also a tapestry that encapsulates the incident and is on display in a local museum. Eyemouth has a rich history, and it is mostly connected with fishing. Eyemouth, like many other fishing communities up and down the east coast, came into prominence during the herring boom that grew with the 19th century. But its history goes back further than that, much further. There is a house that was built and owned by a professional smuggler in the 18th century, and there's fortifications that go back 2 centuries more, but still the history goes back further, right into the Middle Ages. Local magnates of the area, the Holmes, had been pretty much hereditary keepers of the nearby Coldingham Priory, which had once belonged to the See of Durham, way back into the Dark Ages, before the Scots-English border was properly defined. The Holmes' fingers had been sticky, diverting funds, and, after a falling out with the King of Scots, King James III, they lost this position and sought out other ways of getting monetary recompense. As usual, it was the common folk that suffered for this, and unfairly high tariffs had been imposed on fish landing at the harbour. This conflict between the church and the town had survived the Reformation and was still very much in evidence by the time Robert Burns visited in 1787. By the 19th century, things were boiling over. The lot of the fisher folk was hard. In autumn 1881, a storm was brewing. No social or political tempest this time, but an actual storm, a catastrophic cyclone with hurricane-force winds, the worst ever to hit the southeast coast of Scotland. The times were so hard that the fishermen and their families were close to starvation. By the time the storm seemed to abate, one boat set off to sea, the Fiery Cross. And in the maritime tradition of the town, when one boat puts to sea, they all do. However, the storm returned with a vengeance, and most of the fleet were smashed to pieces against the rocks beside the harbour. At Eyemouth alone, 125 souls were lost. And towns and villages up and down Berwickshire and East Lothian suffered a similar fate, but Eyemouth suffered most of all. From such tragedies, however, sometimes heroes emerge, and here one William Spears had been campaigning to have the unfair tariffs changed. He had spent time in jail for his beliefs, and was joined by fisherfolk and tradespeople from as far afield as Lowestoft in Norfolk to Lerwick in Shetland. Eventually, Spears' persistence paid off. The age-old tariff tithe system was replaced by a one-off payment to the church, who still got their pound of flesh, or fish in this case. The disaster is well remembered here, and known locally as Black Friday. In the Eyemouth Fisheries Museum, it is hauntingly recalled in this tapestry that sums up man's insignificance in the face of nature's fury. Along the seafront too is a reminder, this time in statue form. The little figures, the wives and wains of the fisherfolk, looking on in horror, is a poignant memorial, such as exists in Bournemouth to the south and Cove to the north, among other coastal communities, and serve perhaps as a warning to us that some things are out with our control, a warning we could perhaps do with heeding more often. Standing starkly to the south side of the harbour, and visible for miles around, is a mid-18th century mansion known as Gunn's Green House, commissioned by local merchant and smuggler extraordinaire John Nisbet, and built by the leading architect of the day, John Adam. In commissioning Adam to do the work, Nisbet was making a statement which clearly said, "Look at me. I've made a fortune from what I do," much of which was smuggling. Since the Act of Union in 1707, taxation had suddenly increased, and at the same time Scotland's age-old trade with the Low Countries had gone, England's enemies becoming Scotland's now as well. So smuggling and contraband had become big business as the 18th century wore on, especially on this coast, and as locals benefited from it in a small way, they were hardly going to rock the boat, as it were. The house included a secret chamber and a tea shoot, whereby illegal contraband could be stored undetected. I love Eyemouth and the Berkshire coast in general, and I think this is a story that deserves to be told and deserves to be known. Thank you.